How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, as always, Hicksydust, here with some more Pokemon-related content. If you've been keeping up with the series so far, you know we've already covered Generations 1 and 2. If you haven't, I'll tag those videos at the end of this one. But for today's video, we're going to be talking about Pokemon Generation 3. For this video, I'm going to be focusing on Ruby, Sapphire, and of course, Emerald. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire would release in 2003 in the United States, with Sapphire being my original copy. Emerald would release 2 years later in 2005. Now, Gen 3 wasn't the first generation I ever played, but as an adult, it's one of the gens I keep coming back to. It feels like one of the most complete eras of classic Pokemon. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect by any means, and I'll get into some of the stuff that still bugs me later, but overall, this is one of my favorites. Gen 3 added the third most new Pokemon of any generation, with 135. That puts it behind Generation 1 at number 2 with the original 151, and a later gen we'll discuss down the line. I don't want to spoil that just yet. Along with the big dex jump, Gen 3 tightened up some of the core mechanics I appreciate way more now than I ever did as a kid. Abilities and the battlefield matters now. One of the biggest shifts Gen 3 brought in was abilities. Before this, you only really had to think about moves and typing. Now, every Pokemon comes with an extra line of flavor text that actually matters in battle. You've got abilities like Intimidate, where you can switch a Pokemon in and immediately lower your opponent's attack. Levitate, which straight up deletes any ground-type weakness for your Pokemon. Rough Skin, which punishes physical attackers by dealing chip damage back every time they make contact. Pickup. Your Pokemon will reward you with items they found just by you walking the map. And these are just a few examples. As an adult, Hoenn feels like the gen where Game Freak quietly tested, what if the battlefield itself mattered as much as your team? Abilities turned a lot of matchups into little puzzles. It wasn't just, is this super effective anymore? It's, what happens if I swap this Pokemon in right now? Now, weather has been around in Gen 3, but here it starts to feel like a real system. This is what I mean when the battlefield starts to matter. You've got abilities and moves like Rain Dance, Sunny Day, Sandstorm, all that. But here it ties into the identity of certain teams and routes a little bit more. Instead of just being flavor text and making certain routes feel darker, gloomier, or brighter, weather can boost or hinder moves, give abilities extra value, and divine how much a matchup actually plays out. Between abilities and weather, Gen 3 is kind of the point where the series says, okay, we're going to ask you to think a little deeper about how you build and pilot your teams. Gen 3 introduced Pokemon contests, which are basically another way to use your team that isn't just beat something up, collect your prize money, and move on. You have different contests for different categories: cool, cute, smart, tough, and beauty. Your Pokemon can boost each of these attributes by eating Pokeblocks, which are made from berries. Suddenly, you're looking at your move pool in a totally different way. Every move is tagged with one of those contest styles, so instead of just asking, is this move good in battle? You're also asking, is this move a cool move? Is it a cute move? Is it a smart move? If you want to run contests seriously, it makes you reevaluate Pokemon you already know, and I like that Gen 3 found a way to make old moves feel new by changing the context. One of the things I really appreciate about Gen 3 is how it pushes you to actually care about what Pokeball you use. I know. Pokeballs are just how you catch these things, right? But hear me out. In Gen 3, especially late game, throwing everything out in that same basic red and white Pokeball kind of kills the individuality of my Pokemon. In parts of the manga, the Pokeballs were clear, and you can see the Pokemon that was inside. But the game kind of pushed that mechanic to the back burner for reasons I really don't know or understand. But in Gen 3, the ball sprite was included in the animation when you would send out your Pokemon. This means that whatever Pokeball you caught your Pokemon in would now start to show. That flipped a switch in my brain. I've got an idea! I started thinking, if this was a real battle, and I had a belt full of Pokeballs, How annoying would it be if they all looked identical and I grabbed the wrong one for the wrong situation? So from Gen 3 and on, from this point forward, I try to catch every team member in a ball that actually fits them. Each Pokemon had to be in its own unique individual ball. Part of that is the real-world practicality of knowing what you're throwing out, but honestly, it also just increases the unique vibe for each Pokemon. Your ace looks cooler coming out of something that matches their personality instead of just a basic Pokeball. Kurt technically started this idea in Gen 2, and while we kind of glossed over him in the Johto video, you could bring him apricorns and he would turn them into custom Pokeballs in about a day of in-game time. Gen 3 doesn't bring Kurt back, but it does expand the roster of specialty balls, and more importantly starts showing them off when you send your Pokemon out. Aside from aesthetics, special Pokeballs also made it easier to catch certain types. You had Dusk Balls, which were great for catching Pokemon either in the nighttime or in caves where little to no light was showing. You have Net Balls, which were good for catching either water or bug type Pokemon, or Dive Balls, which were great for specifically water type Pokemon. You had Quick Balls, which were good for catching Pokemon at the beginning of encounters, Timer Balls, which were great for Pokemon which required a little bit more strategy and time. They really amped up what Pokeballs could do in this generation. Now, we have to talk about one of the rougher edges, HMs. In my Gen 2 video, I mentioned how you needed Surf, Whirlpool, and Waterfall just to fully explore Johto's water routes. I was already starting to feel like a little too much, but Gen 3 looked at this and said, what if we turn that into a full moveset? And with that, they added the move Dive. On the water side alone, you've now got Surf, Waterfall, Whirlpool, and Dive, enough to fill one Pokemon's move slots. Dive is tied directly into the story. You're literally chasing a stolen submarine, which is cool in concept, but it comes at a cost. On top of that, you still have moves like Cut, Strength, Rock Smash, and Flash to try to balance. Suddenly, one poor normal or water type Pokemon in your party is holding half of your toolbox. This is where the phrase HM Slave really kind of digs in. From a design perspective, I get what they were going for. Hoenn is supposed to feel like this big, interconnected region, the ocean routes, the hidden underwater caves, all of that is part of its identity. But in practice, this is one of the places where I feel the friction the hardest. There's something very Gen 3 about having this upgraded, more intentional battle system, and then also having one Pokemon in the back of your party acting like a Swiss Army knife carrying an oversized backpack that you really don't want to bring, but you kind of have to. As a kid, I barely noticed it. I taught the HMs, I just kept going. But as an adult, it's one of those few parts of Hoenn's I am the least nostalgic for. Secret bases and customization. On the flip side, Gen 3 does something I love. It leans into customization in the real world with secret bases. In Hoenn, you can claim a little chunk of the map, tree hollows, caves, random wall spots, and turn it into your own secret base. You decorate it with dolls, plants, cushions, mats, all kinds of little objects. Is it mechanically essential? No. But it makes the world feel more like a place you live in and not just a hallway you can run through. We actually saw the seed of this in Gen 2. If you let your mom save some money for you during battles, she'd occasionally buy you a decoration, a doll, which you can use to decorate your bedroom. It was limited, but it was Pokemon starting to experiment with the idea that you could customize something other than your team. For me, it's kind of funny that Gen 3 in some ways has more meaningful customization than certain later games. For an example, we're going to skip all the way to Gen 9, Scarlet and Violet. In Scarlet and Violet, you enroll at this academy and you're assigned a room, which you basically never go back to because there's nothing you can do with it. No decorating, no base building, it's just, here's a room, we're moving on. That's why Hoenn's secret bases stand out when I look back. It's not just nostalgia, it's something that an older gen did better than the newer games. You make this world your own, and the games that come out 20 years later still haven't nailed that impact that Gen 3 made on this franchise. Story-wise, Gen 3 is still early Pokemon. It's not some huge cinematic masterpiece with a movie studio budget, but it does push things forward in a couple of important ways. You've got version-exclusive villain teams, Team Magma in Ruby and Team Aqua in Sapphire, each with their own "we absolutely did not think this through" environmental agenda. Magma wants to expand the landmass. Aqua wants more oceans. Both believe the world would be better if their side wins, and both are kind of playing with forces they don't really understand. In Ruby, Team Magma is trying to wake Groudon to expand the land. In Sapphire, Team Aqua is trying to awaken Kyogre to expand the seas. Both of them act like they're doing this noble world-fixing mission, and both of them basically trigger a potential apocalypse because they never thought about balance. Emerald is where it all comes together. And this is where I think Gen 3 quietly levels up the series in storytelling. Instead of picking one side, Emerald lets you see both sides of Magma and Aqua, almost like looking at both sides of the coin. The weather goes completely out of control. The region is literally being torn apart by these two legendary Pokemon, and then Rayquaza has to come down and basically yell at both of them to knock it off. The reason I compare this to Crystal is that Emerald feels like the definitive Hoenn run in the same way Crystal was the definitive Johto run. Ruby and Sapphire introduced the ideas. Emerald said, "Okay, bet. Let's actually fuse them, raise the stakes, and make the most complete version of this story that we can on this hardware." It's not a modern cinematic tale or anything like that, but for its time, it did a lot with the tools it had. So, let's talk about the fun part, shall we? The team I basically always default to when I play through the Hoenn region. Out of the options Professor Birch gives you, Torchic, Mudkip, or Trico, my starter is usually always Trico. When fully evolved, it turns into Sceptile. Hey, what can I say? I just like grass starters in general, with the exception of Gen 2, which I already covered. But Sceptile is just stylish, it's fast, it hits hard with the special attack, and it fits Hoenn's more mature feeling design really well. When I think Hoenn Ace, Sceptile is one of the first ones that comes to mind. I almost always end up with a Mightyena on my team. It's available early on as a Poochyena, gives you some good dark type coverage for dealing with psychic types, and it just has this loyal, slightly meaner guard dog vibe that I just enjoy on a team. It's not the strongest dark type in the world, but it makes up for it with utility. It continues my theme of favorites, which I touched on in earlier videos, that being that my favorites are always start off as this cute little Pokemon that evolves all the way into this unstoppable killing machine. That would be Poochyena being the puppy form, and then Mightyena being the fully evolved guard dog. It can learn all the elemental Fang moves, which is what I was touching on before with utility, which makes this Pokemon a real Swiss Army knife type of Pokemon. Next we have Aggron. Aggron is another staple for me. Aron into Lairon into Aggron is one of the most satisfying evolution lines in this whole region. Aggron, it hits like a truck. It has that big armored dinosaur knight look going on, and it feels like the perfect partner to send out when you want to say, okay, we're done messing around now. Aesthetically, it also reminds me of something out of just Metal Gear, and I usually use that when I name them. For water and overall general utility, I like using Sharpedo. It's fragile, sure, but when it hits, it hits. It fits Hoenn's water-heavy vibe, and between Surf and the offensive move pool, gives you a lot of coverage. It feels like a glass cannon at times, but it's worth babysitting. Plus, it's like the only shark-based Pokemon in the entire game. I wonder why that is. Thoughts for a later video, perhaps? Swellow fills the early game flyer slot. It's fast, it's reliable. It feels good to have that classic normal flying type that's been going on in this generation, or going on in this franchise from the first two generations. Swellow is one of those Pokemon that doesn't look complicated. It doesn't need a big gimmick. It just does its job. It's sleek, and you can catch it ahead of the fighting type gym, which is super helpful. Rounding things out, I like to bring Flygon. Trapinch into Vibrava, into Flygon, is one of those lines where the payoff is absolutely worth the awkward middle stage. Flygon gives you ground and dragon coverage, fits thematically with Hoenn's desert and ruin vibes, and it looks cool without being overly designed. Ground dragon type was a really cool concept. However, Flygon tends to get overshadowed by its Gen 4 counterpart, which we'll discuss in a later video. Some honorable mentions: Latios and Latias. I normally don't like to mention legendaries in these videos. I don't usually even like to put them on my team, but that's just because I'm not a fan of trading out this Pokemon that I've been raising since I caught it at like level 5, just to swap it out for this overpowered end-game supercharged Pokemon in favor of a Pokemon that I've literally hand-raised and fed. It just feels, I don't know, less fulfilling in a way. It also kind of feels like a cheap way out sometimes. However, Latios and Latias from Gen 3, I don't know if it's the fact that they kind of look like military aircraft, but alongside Rayquaza, Kyogre, Groudon, hell, I'll even throw the Regis in here. Gen 3 to me just has the best pool of legendary Pokemon in my opinion, and I just wanted to talk about them for a little bit. A few designs I'm not in love with. Even in a generation like this, there are a couple designs that just don't land for me. For one of them, that just happens to be Spinda. Listen, I get the idea. Every Spinda caught has a different spot pattern, which is a cool concept in theory. In practice, though, it just kind of looks like a perpetually dizzy panda rabbit thing that never fully clicked with me. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea that two people can catch the same Pokemon and it looks a little different. I don't know so much if I love it as a one Pokemon concept or if they were to integrate that into every Pokemon caught. Not only that, Spinda doesn't really add anything battle-wise, at least for my teams, so unfortunately, Spinda just kind of has to sit this one out. Next would be Love Disc. Listen, don't get me wrong, it's cute, but it feels like a concept sketch more than a fully realized Pokemon. When you stack it up against other water types in Hoenn, it just doesn't have much going on visually or mechanically for that point. It's like they drew a heart, put eyes on it, and then shipped it full send and just left it, I don't know, unfinished. I get what they were going for, it just doesn't work for me. Lastly, we're going to talk about Ludicolo. I know, some people adore this thing. And of all the Pokemon I've talked about on my least favorites list, this is the one I'm anticipating getting the most pushback for. But hear me out. It's never worked for me. It feels like it has too many concepts going on at once. Like they just put a bunch of gimmicks in a bag, shook it up, and out come Ludicolo. We have this dancing pineapple duck sombrero wearing grass water hybrid, and the whole vibe is just a little too goofy for my taste. I mean, you look back at the Pokemon that I've caught, right? You have Pokemon like Aggron or Mightyena, which they look like they're there for a job. You know, they look like they're there to fulfill a role. Ludicolo is just, I don't know. There's just something about this Pokemon that sets me off. Like, it just, too much going on, I guess is the best phrase I have for it. It just doesn't hit the same for me as the rest of Hoenn's roster. If you guys happen to like any of these Pokemon, cool. I'm not here to shame your favorite Pokemon. I'm just explaining why it doesn't work for me. That being said, even my least favorites in this gen, they're kind of like interesting misses, not why does this exist disaster. Little less kill it with fire than some of the other Pokemon I've talked about. Gen 3, overall, has a really strong identity. And as an adult now, I find myself appreciating how much it quietly upgraded some of the series' systems, even when some of the execution was messy. So, to sum it up, Hoenn wasn't my first Pokemon. Abilities, weather, contests, secret bases, the story refinement in Emerald, and even the little Pokeball obsession that stuck with me for the rest of the way, they all add up to a gen that feels like Pokemon finally tightening the formula without completely losing the plot. Anyway guys, that's my adult look back at Pokemon Generation 3, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. Let me know in the comments what some of your go-to Hoenn team picks look like, which version you played, and how you feel about things like HMs and secret bases now that we've seen where the series went to after this. If you enjoyed this and you've been following me through the Gen 1 and Gen 2 videos, stick around for more content because trust me, there's plenty more to come. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.